Hey, what's up guys? In this video, I'm going to be going over and demonstrating the filter section in Massive X. And Native Instruments has really, in the last couple years, nailed filters. And they have captured how they behave. Filters from the real world, I mean. And when I mean, captured how they behave when you feed back sounds into them. The smudginess, right? It's very kind of like unpredictable, and I'm assuming it's a little bit tricky to do in DSP. So I really appreciate that. Having said that, and the reason why I say that is it's really important to kind of take into account the feedback. The feedback amount is over here. Typically, they are within the module itself for the filter, right? But it's over here. The reason why is because Massive X is modular in nature. So the feedback can be in any kind of part of the synth. It's pretty useful that way. But to understand the filters and their behavior, we have to understand that the feedback is also important. And we can actually see that here. So this is the routing section. So we have all of our oscillators and blah, blah, blah going into this send, which is empty, and then it's going into the filter. That is then split. It's going into the send and to the output. It's also being sent into the feedback node here. This feedback node essentially sends it over here. It's kind of like a redirect node, and then it goes back into the filter. And when you do that with certain filters, you get this lovely analog smudginess stuff that's pretty juicy, and it makes your sound interesting. We'll be demonstrating that. It's different for every filter, so that's why there's so many filters here. So let's start off by making a blank patch so we can see this all kind of visually. I'm going to open up the Asimov filter, right? Let's get an oscillator here, boom, and then a noise source, boom, and then we're going to get the Asimov filter here, right? So we'll just connect those. So oscillator 1 and noise 1 going into the filter here, and then I want this to go into a send for reasons a little bit later, and then let's get that sent off to the output, right? And the output's over here. Pretty cool. Okay. From here, actually, let's just put that back over there. From here, let's get the feedback going on, right? So this is the two feedback nodes. These can be placed kind of anywhere. But what I want to do is I want to have the filter output going into the feedback input here. And that's effectively being sent to this. And then we'll get that into the filter input here, right? So quick kind of quiz. Oscillator, noise, going into the filter, going into the send, going out. But then the filter, it's also going into the feedback, and the feedback going into there. So this, I want to make that kind of clear. It's important, and yeah, let's move on. So we have the Asimov filter here, and I'm going to use white noise, right? I'm going to turn off filter 1. And I'm choosing white noise because it's essentially all frequencies at once. Right, relatively flat, so it'll give us a good idea of the behavior of a lot of these filters. So let's go through this kind of simply, and then we're going to get into the advanced stuff, and we're going to see how kind of powerful it is. So this is the frequency knob here. This is also known as the cutoff and a couple other things. And we're going to select a certain frequency. So when we select a certain frequency, we're selecting the cutoff point, the point in which the filter begins to kind of behave, right? And right now we're on a low pass filter, LP, low pass, right? So this will let the lows pass and the highs are not allowed to go anywhere. So let's bring the filter, sweep the filter down. Right, you see that right there. That right there is a cutoff point. I can't actually, because there's no visual readout. That's the filter cutoff. And we can see it. We can exaggerate it by boosting the resonance, right? Right. This is this boosts the frequency where the cutoff point is, right? And this is a common technique to make things sound cool, right? Resonance here. I'm moving the frequency up and down. All right. So take into account after the cutoff point how it behaves. It slopes down, right? Slopes down. And this is dictated by how many poles are in the filter. So poles are a unit of measurement. One pole is 6 dB, and well, pole means one pole is 6 dB per octave. So for every octave past the cutoff point, you get 6 dB of reduction in amplitude, right? And it's described, filters are described in poles. Like this right here, this has, I just created a low cut, and it is 12 dB per octave, right? This is a 2-pole filter. I can make that 24 dB per octave. We get a sharper cutoff amount here, and I can keep on going to like 48, right? And then 72, and then 96, and then brick wall, right? So as the number of poles go up, the steeper the cutoff, right? And I'll just for fun, I'll demonstrate what that's doing. It's cutting things off as we get more gentle, right? 24. Things like that. So that's, filtering 101. So Asimov is a filter design where it's just a series of low-pass filters. These are filters that you would find in like a Eurorack module or something, you know what I mean? Like, so there's LP4, LP2s, that's a 2-pole, which would be 12 dB per octave, which would be kind of I'm going to turn it on. It's a gentler kind of roll-off. Right, I'll just cycle through them. 2, and then 4, right? Even more so. 2, 4, right? And then 1 is a 1-pole. This is very gentle. And the resonance affects it as well. Right, so that's a roll-off. You have like super duper harmonics. Use LP1. So think of an LP4 as just 4 LP1s put together. Okay, so I'm going to boost the resonance again. Hopefully that's not too loud. We have this thing right here. This is not Crash Team Racing. This is the key tracking. So we have something going on here, and as I'm changing keys, that filter is static. As we increase the key tracking, that cutoff point and the frequency here and the resonance will change. Right, can you hear that? Probably can't. Right, I'm just going up and down the keyboard. Right, and that means that the filter is key tracked. That is exceptionally important for, filters that we're going to be looking at down the road, so that the resonance actually is contextually accurate to the sound that we're playing, because then it'll just kind of fall apart. So key tracking essentially opens up the filter as you move up the keyboard, and kind of goes down the filter as we go down the keyboard, right? And when we get into self-oscillating filters, that's going to be apparent. All right, so let's get like an actual sound in here. All right, so this is a saw wave. Right. So a saw wave has all these harmonics, right? This filter, I'm just going to turn it off. Don't want to blast your ears. This is a saw wave, and it is fully open. And as I engage the filter and then bring the frequency down, we will shave off those, upper harmonics. And the amount that we shave off is dictated by the number of poles in our filter. So this is 4. This is 2, right? Let's a little bit more go through there, and then this is a 1. Right? And you might be thinking, why isn't there a 3? Well, 3-pole filters do exist. They are used for making, acidy sounds and stuff like that. I think, not quite sure about this, but I think, yeah, the 36 dB per octave filter is used in the TB303, I think. I don't know. So we understand that as we get the frequency, the resonance boost here, right, we are accentuating the cutoff point, right, and this makes things sound cool. And as we move up and down the keyboard, the resonance will move with it, making things sound, it gives the filter more context. And when you're using these filters in extreme modes, you kind of want that context. So relative to the fundamental, the high peak resonance will be, the same spot that it usually is. If I get rid of the key tracking, right, that peak just stays there. Doesn't move. But as I, have that up there, sounds, more contextually correct. So there's that. Gain will, boost the gain of the filter here, right? Giving us, more gain, so we get more of a kind of a reactionary filter. This is pretty transparent in this synth, but there's a bug. I just caught it. But as we explore more and more of these algorithms and filter types, this will become a very useful tool. FM. So what is FM? Well, this is frequency modulation of the filter. And this gets its own dedicated thing because it's classic to actual filters in the real world. So we'll have oscillator 2 go into the FM, right? So this oscillator 2 right here is going to be doing some frequency modulation. I'll give it some volume. Right, probably not that apparent. Let's get the pitch down. Right, so this sine wave, right, is oscillator 2. I'll just move it over here so it's very clear. Oscillator 2 is being fed into the FM, which is this right here, and this is kind of an amount. Yeah. Right, so all the way over here is like, not a whole lot, like nothing at all. And as we increase this will kind of increase the value of frequency modulation of the filter, right? And we can do kind of a similar thing just with the volume here. Right? Makes sense. But what is this for? Well, this creates some interesting things. Right, and when it's key tracked, what I mean by key tracked is for every note that I play, this will, kind of modulate at the rate contextual to the key that I'm playing. Right, so we get some really interesting sounds with that. Let's bring down the amount. Right, so that that filter behavior is changing. Right, so these are kind of going out of phase, which sounds pretty neat. Right, so that that filter behavior is changed by this right here. Right, as a sake of example. So that is, you know, Asimov filter 101. Let's move on to some other cool ones here. So I'm going to actually restart Massive. And yeah, let's get that routing section going on here. So let's go to Blue Monarch. So Monarch is Blue Monarch. I believe it's based off of, you know, Monarch by Native Instruments, which is a ladder filter. This is a filter that is, you know, from the Moog, and the one that I was talking about, that did the feedback thing. This is like the OG. This is a very gentle, or not gentle, analog. It can be gentle, it can be aggressive, but, you know, to me it's gentle. I use it in a gentle way. Similar theory of operation, same controls. Right? And what makes this synth, this filter, I mean, special, let's just do that, is it behaves like a real kind of analog filter. And what it does is something called self-oscillation. Right? Nothing being fed into it. When you boost the resonance to a point, it will self-oscillate. And that models slash mimics the, you know, the noise and I guess saturation behavior within the actual unit itself. Once you kind of boost the resonance of that, it will kind of, you know, feedback in on itself. So even like without any feedback, it will, you know, do some, you know, self-oscillation and feedback and stuff like that. And this is very useful for certain sounds like that. So let's get to that in a moment. I'm not going to go through everything because FM still behaves in the same way. Gain is a little bit different, right? Let's get this going on here. Oh yeah, I might want to turn an oscillator on. Gain is a little bit different. Maybe not the best example. I think when we really push it, the gain will be apparent. I was expecting the gain to be a little bit more gainy than that. What is that? It's just 10 dB of gain. Anyway, we can use an insert to boost that, but whatever. So, as of lately, we've been using just low-pass filters, and I will demonstrate that with this white noise here. Right, we've been just using low-pass filters. Right, you don't actually need to hear it, but right, low-pass filters. There are other filters too. So Monarch has low-pass 4, 2, 1, but then there's this BP. So BP, think of it as we're just taking a single kind of frequency and, yeah, carving out the bottom and the top. Right? Band pass. It's not low pass, not high pass. Think of it as like a low pass and a high pass put together. That's band pass. And that's useful for, I like to use it. Oh, I'll just, you know what? I'll just demonstrate what I like to use it for. So this is, right, so we're band passing this sound right here. What I like to do with bandpass filters is I can go into distortion. Oh, no, never mind. So the routing, we don't want distortion to go into the filter. We want this to happen post-filter, right? So it's something you got to kind of take into account, right? Different vibe now, right? And I want you to be able to hear that actually. All right, so there's you go. So we have a bandpass here. As we increase the resonance, I want to blast your ears, sorry. I like to do stuff like that. Right, and because it's key tracked, depending on what pitch we're playing, the frequency will move. If it wasn't like that, it kind of falls apart. It's not, there's no context. It's not like linked up. There's no continuity, I mean, with the pitch and stuff like that and the filter. Right, that's what I like to do with that sort of thing. But yeah, that's the bandpass. It's a cool way to kind of shape the sound and get some gnarly stuff going on when you get it with distortion. Peak. Peak is fun. Peak is, you know, it's kind of, yeah, it's just takes a single frequency and then peaks it, and then you can move it around. Conversely, oh no, it doesn't work like that. All right, so this is a peak. So we can accentuate a certain frequency. So that would work with, you know, something like this. So it's kind of like a low-pass filter, but we're not cutting off things after the cutoff point, right? We're just boosting that particular frequency. It's kind of like just grabbing this and then moving that around. Right, and you can get some cool effects that way. That's peak. High pass is the opposite of low pass. Takes everything and, you know, just, it's the opposite of a low pass. So it gets rid of the lower end stuff first. But what you can do with this is you can give your sounds a little bit of a bass boost. And kind of gently affect the, you know, the frequencies around the cutoff point. Right, just a neat little thing that you can do to get some more low end in there, and then dual notch. Right, so we've had a peak here, which is kind of giving us a peak around that frequency. The opposite of a peak is a notch, and in Monarch we have dual notch, which is, you know, 2 notches. Right, so we have the notch, and then we have, you know, the peak at the cutoff frequency here. So if you have the resonance down, we still get the notches. Right, and this is a cool way to get. We used to do this with the virus, the old virus C, or, you know, yeah, we used to do it because phasing would kind of sound weird sometimes in the mix, and, you know, it was hard to kind of make that work. So we would just use these notch filters. We get like a pseudo kind of phaser effect. I'll just demonstrate, right? You have a notch there and a notch there, right? Right, so you get that phaser effect without actually like messing with your stereo image and things like that. Pretty useful and pretty fun. And Monarch is one of the prime examples where the feedback sounds great. All right, so let's go low pass 4, which is a 4-pole filter, which is 24 dB per octave. All right, let's get some feedback going in. Right, so we can confirm Monarch, feedback, feedback. Let's boost the feedback. Before I destroy ears. That's smudginess, right? As we increase the resonance. Okay, now it's falling apart. Right, so classic kind of right, classic trick is kind of get the feedback to where it kind of smudges. Right, and it's accurate. It sounds like it's falling apart. It sounds like it doesn't make sense. It sounds bad, but it doesn't sound bad. But it's accurate to the behavior of these filters. Right, things like that. From there, we can give the gain a bit of boosting of the gain. Right, really cool, and that's with the feedback. Feedback also has a high pass filter built into it, which controls, it makes sure that the low end stuff, doesn't mess around with things too much. Right, and that's basic feedback behavior for those playing at home. Right, so to understand the filter is to understand the feedback. I'm gonna go to init blank here. Let's get the next one in here. This is comb. So a comb filter is, I'm gonna watch what I say. It is a filter, but how it kind of comes to what it's doing is not really a filter at all. But it does filter. It's hard to explain. What it is it is a signal that is, played again, but then delayed. So we're stacking the signals, and then we achieve feedback. And what we do is we get comb filtering. All right, so comb filtering is when, you have a delay in the signal and certain frequencies are masked, some are accentuated. And what I can do is I can actually demonstrate it with, let's just do, I don't want to just play it. That'd be lame. Oops. Okay. Now we have, why that? All right, so we have a saw wave, clean saw wave. Let's drop in a delay. All right. Turn off the sync and then set the time, left and right, to 1 millisecond. The dry at 50, wet dry at 50%. That is essentially comb filtering. What comb filtering kind of looks like, I'll show you in a sec, but actually, no, yeah, I'm going to show you now. So comb filtering, what it actually looks like, it's just a bunch of notch filters, or a bunch of peaks, and you can kind of look at it visually. If we go to comb, right? So this is combage, right? Nulls, peaks, If you go into like your bathroom shower and you start talking and you notice how you sound different, there's some comb filtering going on because the sound is bouncing around and things like that. It's not that simple, but it's pretty accurate, I guess. That's kind of what it looks like. There's plus and then there's negative. So the there's the destructive combining of frequencies, and then the you know the you know the destructive, constructive and destructive. So they're just kind of mirror image of each other. I'm actually going to demonstrate further just with the delay here. As we delay the signal more, right, we start to get these peaks here. Right, that is essentially what the comb filter is doing, and the feedback amount dictates, the strength. Right, and that is essentially the comb filter. You do a lot of cool things with comb filters, all sorts of things, but the feedback is dictated by that. Oh, and what's really cool is it's actually key tracked. So the peaks are in context to the note that you're playing. Let's just bring it up. Right, similar idea with the feedback. Plus and negative. I want to do a square. Right. The comb filter back on. And, as we move up and down the key, there's, key tracking, which is pretty neat. The frequency of those peaks can be changed. You can modulate this and you'll get some flanging and phasing coolness. So think of it as like a phaser or whatever. Probably a flanger, right? Oh, there's a flanger option here. Probably, yeah, think of it like that, as a flanger that is kind of static and that moves around with the key that you are pressing. So you can kind of change the timbre with the plus and minus. This is where you get into the physical modeling aspect, and you can do some really cool things. I guess the exciter mode would be, like the string. So a string is plucked, and that string wibbly wobbles, and the wobbles kind of move up and down, and they, match each other and then move each other down. I think maybe we can demonstrate this with a sine wave. Just, I guess, not the best example in the world, but we'll get into comb filtering and all of its uses later down the road. All right, so we got a lot of high frequencies here. This low pass right here is another filter that will filter out those. So as we get more and more crazy and aggressive, right, we can shave those off. This is a very gentle low pass filter. I think it'd be like a one pole. Right, and we're essentially adding some interesting harmonics. Well, accentuating some of the harmonics as well. Like if I wanted to make, maybe like a guitar string, I'd use a sine wave and stuff like that. But that's physical modeling, which I'm not super hip with, but it's there. Right, and you can get some really gnarly sounds with that. And all those neat harmonics. And this takes well to feedback also, and this is where that really cool kind of experimentation will come in. Right, probably not the best example, but if we take that feedback, we go into an insert, right? This is what I like to call, I guess, conditioning of the sound, right? So this insert here, we could have track delay. Okay, so this will take that signal, feedback signal. Typically, it's like immediate, but we can delay that signal slightly and get another kind of comb filtering effect. As an example. And we can just experiment. That's like a violin that's on fire. Just for sake of example, that is the comb filter, which let's just call it a filter. Okay, next up, let's go massive here. So let's go to Creek. So we have low pass filters, which are pretty nice. But then we have these kind of filters here. Now this is, I guess, an analog modeled filter. We know this because, does it? Oh no, it doesn't. It doesn't feed back, or self-oscillate, I should say. So this is its own thing, as far as I know. And this would be a low-pass filter with a lot of kind of peaks in it. And I'll demonstrate by boosting the resonance. And I'll kind of turn it down. Right. Right. A bunch of peaks. Right. So multiple peaks, not just the resonant peak with just the one with the azimuth. Right. We have a bunch. Right. And there's different kind of styles here. Right. This one has a dip before the next kind of peak here. Right. And then we have the nosy. Which is quite interesting in the UER. All right, so what are these for? Well, these, as far as I know, this is similar to the very poor quality filters back in the day. These are akin to like what the MS-20 filter looked like. Adding lots of kind of interesting harmonics. Right? Those multiple peaks have an effect compared to the azimuth or, you know, the monarch, right? Creek is like, just adds harmonics and gives it that beautiful kind of delicious flavor. Right. And then mixed with the feedback, of course, you know, you get the whole idea. So there's different kinds of behaviors of this frequency cutoff point. And yeah, not, it's, I guess, analog inspired. Did the MS-20 filter self-oscillate? I actually don't think it did. So, or the resonant, no, who knows? Who knows? But that's Creek. Growian? Growian is it's one of those interesting ones. This one, indeed, self-oscillates. So, you know, when you self-oscillate, your analog, right? So let's get an oscillator in there. Let's get a noise in there. Right, so this is it's like a comb filter. It's comb filter inspired, and this one is this one's pretty unique sounding. It's a really creepy synth. You can get like, or filter. You can get a lot of really crazy stuff going on. got that. And then we have our character, which filters out those kind of those phasey things going on there. Right, so this is a, yeah, there's 2 peaks there. Gentle kind of roll off, 4-pull, of course. And yeah, that is dictated by the frequency there. Right, and you get some interesting harmonics there, but the character introduces that effect. Right, so what is this for? Well, I don't know. I don't know what it's used for, but it does sound pretty cool. So maybe like everything above the cutoff point has some comb filtering going on. For the sake of example, bandpass. Similar thing going on there. Peak. It's a good way to have, like, the lower end like untouched, and then the top end, has that crazy sound, right? Because this would sound like super neat on something like Dirty Vowel. I don't know why I always pick this one. Right? As opposed to just adds those extra harmonics to it. Bring that down an octave. Right? And yeah, what else? Yeah, and then high pass. Yeah, it's a really interesting filter, and it combines a bunch of things put together. Okay, scanner. Scanner is it's another one of those analog modeled ones. I think more inspired. Right, let's look at it with the noise here. This one also feed. It's from an existing synth they have. I'm pretty sure. This one has self oscillation. Right. And with key tracking, you can actually play it as an oscillator, which is pretty nice. Yeah, what can I say about scanner? I think this is it might be inspired by another synth as well. Yeah, there's 2 peaks there. So it's a similar one, but that's because of the self oscillation. Not quite sure what this is based on, but it sounds cool. I'm gonna reopen this here. Okay, we're getting I can't open that one yet. That was close. So let's get down to the state variable filters. So state variable filters, as far as I know, are filters that should, in theory, kind of morph between low pass, high pass, and band pass. And we can actually see what this is doing. We add in an auto filter from Ableton. Right? We can go, we can have the filter here. We can go over here to this mode here. And we can morph low pass, band pass, high pass, and then notch, and then, low pass. We can do some cool stuff. Right. That's my general theory of what's occurring here. There's no way to morph here. and it's rather confusing to me. Oh, I might turn it on. Right. Right. To me, it's just a typical filter. Right. Right. Not a whole lot going on, and the res boost doesn't do a whole lot. But when we get into the state variable filter parallel effects, so these are the only two multi-mode filters, or parallel and serial filters that are in massive. So right now we're in parallel mode. Now this confuses me. Not a whole lot of stuff makes sense here. So this is think of it as two filters operating in parallel. So the signal is split, they both kind of process them in the same way, and then they're put back together, which is pretty neat in theory. So this is, what it kind of looks like. There's a bunch of different modes here. So we have a low pass and a high pass put together, right? And that's kind of what it looks like. We have two filter selectors here, but they don't necessarily do what you think they do. Right? I'm going to bring the resonance back over there. Right? So moving the frequency will move them both. Right? Okay, I'm going to actually go through this over here. So we're going to go to, multi-mode filters, which are pretty basic. Let's get a low pass. No, let's go with something. Low pass. Yeah, okay. So an LB. So low pass and band pass here. Do that. Let's kind of reset these. So this is what you'll kind of look into or look at when you first kind of see what's going on here. We have one cutoff, right? And then we have another frequency cutoff here, right? So this is this would be the band pass filter, right? And this is the low pass filter, and they're kind of matched together. You have equal control over them, right? And this is very useful for sound design and stuff like that, right? You can shape your sound with multiple things to get some interesting sounds there. But this frequency cutoff controls them both, right? You can demonstrate that by boosting the resonance. Right. The second filter here doesn't do what you think it does. It actually just brings them closer together, which is, I guess, the ratio of how they're separated. It's bizarre. This has a low pass and a high pass. Like, I was thinking maybe you can have control over both these. The bandwidth is also controls how spread apart they are. Right, which is kind of weird. Low pass and band pass also, which is kind of similar to what we're looking at here. Right, so the second filter, this doesn't do anything. Just makes them go closer together. The same with the bandwidth. Right, what does it do? I have no clue what's going on. Also, you go down the line here, and low pass and low pass. But what low pass and low pass is obviously two band passes. Right, that's not two low passes. Right, that's kind of doing something. Yeah, I guess it kind of is a low pass, but why is it? Why is it behaving like that? I don't know. I have no idea. So we'll go bandpass and low pass. Like, I don't understand. Like if I wanted to, you know, set the low pass or whatever, and then move the bandpass. Why is it controlling both of them? I don't know. But anyway, that is that right there. And then to top this off, we have state variable filter in series mode. Now this one kind of works, right? So we have this here. And what this does is this will give us control over the low pass peak and the high pass peak. And we have it set like so. Set the band pass like that. If we map these to a macro, like so, to the same macro, but we have them kind of, you know, inverted, so they're moving. When I move this macro up, this one's moving that way, this one's moving that way. We will get the behavior of a state variable filter, right? So low pass filter, and then it'll morph to that right there. So yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it goes to like a peak or whatever. That bandwidth, I'm not sure what's going on. I'm sure the manual will let us know. It's not like a whole lot of state variable filters that I've used in the past. But anyway, those are the filters. There's a couple in the utility, but these aren't really worth going over. They're just for kind of, you know, conditioning the sound. There's no resonance or anything attached to these, and they take up a precious slot. But yeah, that is that, and there's none in there. So those were the Massive X filters. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned stuff. Take care and have a good one.